Right, my friends, good afternoon and welcome to our second annual Martin Luther King celebration, a day of Thanksgiving and a day of gratitude. So today, this is my little one, Ivy, who has heard me and is protesting. One of the things that I want to do is that I want to give a short introduction. This is organized, of course, by the NAACP, the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People. My name is Enrique Gomez. I am president of the local branch. I want to acknowledge a few faces that have volunteered to put together this event. So, for instance, I see Avram Friedman, if you could just wave. I see Dan Cole. I see Miriam Price-White. I see, who else is here that I am missing? Daniel Perlmutter, are you here? Okay, there you go, you're hiding. And yes, we have Ansela Moore, is she here right now, who has helped us? How about Cindy Faircloth Smith? Thank you so much for every single one. Let's give him a hand for coming in and helping out. All right, so today's day, it is a day of celebration to honor not just the life of Dr. Reverend Martin Luther King, but also everybody that partook in the civil rights movement. But this is the only federal holiday that stresses and invites people to take on acts of service to their community. So this is also a time in which we celebrate the spirit of service, of well-being, of participating in solving the problems of our community, and to take that spirit for every day of the year, not just today. So I'm just wondering if there are any folks here that have partaken in any action of service for the day. And anybody here? I see making chili counts. Yes, absolutely. I see Marcia Kreitz over there. Marcia, where did you guys work at?
Well, about 14 or 15 of us worked at the Clean Slate House, pulling out old ductwork, cleaning bedrooms, putting up shower rods.
Excellent. That's great to hear. Thank you so much for doing that. Some more faces that I'd like to acknowledge. If you could please stand. I see Joe Sam Queen, who is our state representative. Okay, he's also running for election. I recognize Tom Hill. He's also running for office. And I see Rick Bryson. Thank you everybody for coming. They're running for office. Take a chance to introduce yourself to them and to share any concerns that you have or just fellowship. I also like to recognize the pastor Blake Daniels from the First Presbyterian Church here in Sylva. If you'd like to stand up so we can do it, and if you'd like to have any shares, I'd like to thank you so much for allowing us to share your beautiful space so we could have this event in short order.
Yeah, just wanted to say welcome to you all. It's a joy to have you with us. Thank you for being here today, and it's nice to meet you. I just moved to Sylva 6 months ago, so I'm learning the lay of the land, but it's a privilege for me to be serving this congregation. And when Enrique asked if they could use our space, it was a privilege. So welcome. I hope this is a fruitful time for y'all. Nice to meet you.
All right, thank you. So we have a few things I want to note also. We do have speakers. There are things that we want to share and make you aware of. For instance, we have, you can register to vote. All right. If you are registered but are uncertain, or you have moved recently, or you just don't know the last time that you registered, it doesn't hurt to just go ahead and do it again, right? We are part of an ongoing campaign. We are going to carry the message of the civil rights heroes, of Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King, and really exercise that right to vote, to participate in democracy, the political process, to make our voices heard, and to allow other people to also have their voices heard. We also have a bus that is going to be going from Jackson County. This is part of the for people who want to join us as a group in the Moral March on Raleigh on February 13th. That's the day before Valentine's Day. This is going to be a massive, massive event. This is the 10th time he has done. This is part of a coalition called the Historic Thousands on Jones Street. This is the 10th time that it's been done, and in the past we have reached numbers of upwards of 80,000 people, and this is protesting and marching on Raleigh. And there's a whole host of issues here. There is a people's agenda that has been celebrated, that has been acknowledged, that has been pushed. And we're pushing our elected officials, our legislature, General Assembly, our Supreme Court, State Supreme Court, also the governors, both on both parties, because this spans several parties. And again, the NAACP is not a partisan organization. We don't have permanent friends. We don't have permanent enemies, but we do have permanent interests, right? And we are certainly willing to work with people of both parties or no parties at all to advance the people's interests. This organization was founded in 1909. It is, from the very beginning, it was a multiracial, multi-ethnic coalition of people that looked very carefully at the situation of colored people in this country, what we'll come to know as African Americans. But really, it's an issue that spans Latinos, Asians, Native Americans, Americans in general. The issues that we're interested in affect poor whites, poor blacks, poor Latinos, people in rural communities, people in urban areas. We are interested in advancing all of these interests because we are one nation. We have different origins, but we do share one destiny. And as part of the NAACP, we want to highlight the fact that in this common destiny, it is something that is a promise that was given to us from the very beginning of the nation. And we are here to realize that promise for every single one, every single American. One thing that I want to note also is that we have multiple speakers. If you look at our program, we have a person that couldn't join us today. Her name is Selma Sparks. But we have more remembrances of MLK and the civil rights movement. There is going to be a call for our campaign. We have this very massive campaign that we are organizing this year. This is the largest get out the vote initiative on any one state at any time in history. We want to reach 2 million voters. We want to train 15,000 get out the vote volunteers. We want to register 28,000 African Americans that are eligible to vote but are not. We want to have 3,000 faith communities across the state that commit themselves to send people to the polls, to register every single one of their members, to organize events so that as a faith community they can go vote. We want to do that. There are just many things that are happening. We have a copy of our newsletter there that you're welcome to take. If you want to find out more about what we plan to do this year, you are welcome to join the NAACP. It's $30 a year or so. And again, it doesn't matter your ethnicity, your race. You're always welcome in the NAACP if you share our values and our aims. Then we also have buttons, and we have our branch t-shirts over there that we're selling for $15, a t-shirt and $1 or extra donation for buttons. If you are interested in joining us for the HQ&J March, we have a bus, and we also have several people that have generously donated money for travel scholarships. And I'm very glad to say that at this point we have 8 students from Western Carolina University that are going to the HQ&J March because of the generosity of many people I recognize in the face today. So if you could please give those folks a hand for their generosity. Let's see, what else do we have? Voter registration. Is there anything that I'm missing out there in the table back there? Oh, yes, yes, please. We are also gathering food for the community table. The community table is one of the organizations that we honored this past year at our humanitarian event for their outstanding service to the community. So we want to help them out. So we are taking donation of dry food, canned food. So if you brought anything, if you could please see Miriam Price White back there, just raise your hand and she'll direct you to that. Let's see, what else do we have here? Let's see. I would like now to begin with our formal program. If I could invite Pastor Daniels, would you like to have an invocation for us that you'd like to share with us to get us started?
Sure.
Yes, thank you so much.
I don't know y'all, and you don't know me, so I don't presume to know where you're coming from or what your particular spiritual perspectives are. I'm in the Presbyterian tradition. This is a Presbyterian church. So I'll pray the only way I know how to pray. And I trust that God knows our hearts and knows our intentions this afternoon. So with that being said, I'd love to open us with prayer this afternoon. Our Lord, we thank you for this gathering of friends, new and old. We thank you for this time to be together to celebrate Martin Luther King Jr.'s life and to celebrate the work that is taking place today in our communities and here. We ask that you would bless this time and that you would send us forth from this place to be your people and to be guided by your Spirit so that we can be faithful to you and faithful to each other. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
Thanks, y'all.
Don't forget to mention Daniel's poster over there.
Okay, thank you so much, Pastor Daniels. Someone pointed out that we have Daniel Perlmutter has been generous enough to actually donate this and design this particular banner that we hope to use in many, many years to come. Those of you who are speaking, just to remind you that if you could come very close to the mic, we actually are recording this. I forgot to point this out. Reverend Friedman is recording this for the Canary Coalition. And just come close to a podium so you can actually get recorded. The next step, the next item, is that I want to share. Where's my program? There's my program. For the service. I want to take a moment to read the proclamation that was passed by the county commissioners of Jackson County this past Monday, January the 18th. So this is proclaiming Martin Luther King Jr. Day of Service, and I would like to just read this aloud and share this with us. This was, of course, passed unanimously, and it was very generous for them to actually make this proclamation. Whereas Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. devoted his life for advancing equality, social justice, and opportunity for all, and challenged all Americans to participate in the never-ending work of building a more perfect union, and whereas Dr. King's teachings can continue to guide and inspire us in addressing challenges in our community, and whereas the King Holiday and Service Act, enacted in 1994, designated the King Holiday as a national day of volunteer service, and whereas in 1994, since 1994, millions of Americans have been inspired by the life and work of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. to serve their neighbors and communities on the King Holiday. And whereas serving on the King Holiday is an appropriate way to honor Dr. King, meet local and national needs, bring our citizens together, and strengthen our communities and nation. And whereas the King Day of Service is the only federal holiday commemorated as a national day of service and offers an opportunity for Americans to give back to their communities on the holiday and make an ongoing commitment to service throughout the year. And whereas the King Day of Service projects are being organized by a wide range of nonprofit and community organizations, educational institutions, public agencies, private businesses, and other organizations across the nation. And whereas each of us can and must contribute to making our communities better with increased opportunity for all our citizens, and whereas citizens of Jackson County have the opportunity to participate in events throughout our county on the King Day of Service, January 18th, 2016, as well as create and implement community service projects where they identify the need. Now, therefore, we, the Jackson County Commissioners, proclaim the Martin Luther King Jr. holiday as a day of service in Jackson County and call upon the people of the county to pay tribute to the life and works of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. through participation in community service projects on the Martin Luther King Day and throughout the year. Adopted the 7th day of January 2016, attested Angela Winchester, Clerk of the Board, and Brian T. McMahon, Chairperson. At this point, I would like to, I was going to honor service volunteers. I saw one person raise their hand earlier. But nevertheless, those of you who came in late, we are honoring those of you who have given time of service to benefit our community. So it is remembrance of all of you, whether here, where you are out there in the cold, giving your time, giving your sweat, giving your blood, your resources to make this community a better place. Please give everybody who is doing this a hand. At this point, I would like to invite Dan Cole. Dan Cole is our chair of communications of the branch, our local branch, and he has 2 words to say about remembering our civil rights, the civil rights movement, and MLK. Dan, please.
Thank you, Enrique. My good friend Selma Sparks is actually not doing well today. She spoke yesterday in Franklin, but I've got some things that she found out. She spoke yesterday about Dr. King, and the most startling thing she found, I'd like to read for you initially. And it was that beginning in 1965, Dr. King came out against the Vietnam War. In a speech dated April 4th, 1967, Dr. King was speaking of John Kennedy. And John Kennedy said, "Those who make peaceful revolution impossible will make violent revolution inevitable." In Dr. King's words, quote, "The role of those who make peaceful revolution impossible by refusing to give up the privileges and the pleasures that come from the immense profits of overseas investments. I am convinced that if we are going to get on the right side of the world revolution, we as a nation must undergo a radical revolution of ideas. We must rapidly begin the shift from a thing-oriented society to a person-oriented society. When machines and computers, profit motives, and property rights are considered more important than people, the giant triplets of racism, extreme materialism, and militarism are incapable of being conquered," unquote. Please consider Dr. King's words. We've all heard, "I have a dream," but he went on from there and began working for economic rights as well as civil rights. He saw all of the struggles intertwined and seeing the injustice done to people of all colors. And I wanted to, just a quick piece of information about myself is that I am a true believer in Dr. King's vision of a just society of peace and equal opportunity. And this armband I earned at one of the Moral Mondays in June of 2013 as I volunteered to be a nonviolent arrestee in the civil disobedience campaign in Raleigh. We have a lot to do. 2016 is a huge year for this nation. It's a turning point. We've seen the ugliness and the racism coming from our justice system in regards to unarmed black men and boys being gunned down in the back, and this needs to change. Public education is at stake for all of our children. In Waynesville, just down the road, they may have to close one of their top performing elementary schools because of the tax cuts coming out of Raleigh, and because we've got politicians who choose those tax cuts for millionaires and profitable corporations over the needs of our children. We've got politicians taking money away from the public schools and giving it to unaccountable charter schools that are often more segregated. They've slashed the textbook funds for our students and teacher assistants, laying off thousands of working people across this state. This is immoral. We've got people in Raleigh who chose not to expand Medicare to health care coverage to 500,000 people in North Carolina. 500,000 people today don't have health insurance that is being paid for by the federal government. It's not coming out of the state coffers. This is tax money coming that we've already paid for as federal taxpayers coming out of D.C., but our politicians here in North Carolina refuse to accept the money and ensure 500,000 people here. And some of those, I believe we have over 1,000 in Jackson County, who do not have, I'm sorry, 600.
1,600.
1,600, that's over 1,000.
I'm one of them.
And you're one of them.
Right here.
Who would be receiving health care insurance through the Medicaid expansion of the Affordable Care Act that politicians refuse to take. This is ghastly. We've seen the attacks on voting rights with the voting ID initiative. Any efforts whose effect is to keep eligible voters from voting or having their votes count is anti-democratic. We've seen fracking legalized in this state. Though it's caused earthquakes, it's poisoned air and groundwater, wells, rivers, and people. This is unfathomable. We've got politicians, and our politicians from North Carolina and Washington, D.C., who are standing against background checks for felons and terrorists who can buy guns at gun shows and online, who say, we're going to vote against anything that would keep them, that would require them to have a background check in these venues. This is insanity. We've got politicians in Washington, D.C. who have voted over 50 times to take away affordable health care to millions of people across this country. And I don't even know how many tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands here in North Carolina who are now benefiting from affordable health care. This is unconscionable. We've got people who vote to subsidize fossil fuel production that destroys our climate, rather than support the green energy that is free from the sun, from the wind. This is suicidal. We've got people in D.C. who are against, and North Carolina, who are against raising the minimum wage to a livable wage. No American who works 40 hours a week should have to live in poverty. This is a political choice they're making for us, and yet they're supposed to represent us. This is economic servitude. We've got politicians of both parties who benefit from dark money, super PACs, secret donors, huge donation amounts to buy influence. This is corrupting our entire system, undermining the values of our constitutional concept of one person, one vote. This is unacceptable. We've got the revolving door in politics and the lobbyists, politicians who are charged with regulating an industry are later hired by that industry to influence our government. This is simply corrupt. We've got big bankers who tanked our economy. Not only aren't going to jail, but they're getting bonuses. If we want a fair justice system, we've got to change the way the grand jury system is done. Because right now, the DA, who constantly works with the police, has too much sway whether or not a police officer is charged in these cases of unarmed people getting killed. We've got partisan redistricting, a gross perversion of our democracy and our voting rights. Instead of people choosing our politicians in this gerrymandering business, we've got politicians choosing their voters. This must end. And I'm not talking about any one party. This gerrymandering goes back generations, across party lines. We've got politicians in D.C. who block the country of origin on the meat that we buy. This has passed Congress. This is law. When we buy a packet of meat in the supermarket, we don't know where it came from. They got rid of that. This is unbelievable. We've got the people right now, we should have a right to know if genetically modified organisms is in our food, but they voted against it. Some of this to me seems treasonable, to be going against the interests of the American people who they're supposed to be representing. Instead, they're voting in the interests of those who have the money to pay them to be in their pocket. George Orwell predicted that some of this was going to happen. But even he couldn't imagine the inhumane and immoral policies of some of our politicians today. And there are some good people in office, and many more who are running, who would represent us. We the people, we need to educate ourselves in order to distinguish between those who claim to be for the people and those who actually support the policies that help rather than hurt the vast majority of Americans. There are those public servants who believe in humanity, in helping most Americans as we struggle to pay our bills, send our kids to good schools, and there are those who worship the almighty dollar and value their estate above the value of human beings. We need transparency, accountability, and sustainability if we are to survive as a human race. Instead, we've got too many of our elected politicians are making immoral decisions that have anti-democratic priorities, with a small d, that have unconstitutional agenda based on greed and empire. In my view, they need to get right with the Lord, get right with the people, or get out of the way, because we're coming. And together, we are coming. And that's why this organization is crucial. If just one voice in the wilderness doesn't cut it, we need to come together under one banner as a united voice of the people. Across ethnic, racial, partisan lines, everybody needs to come together, because everything is at stake. Our way of life is at stake, is being threatened. Our rights are being taken away every time Congress or the General Assembly meets. More and more of our rights are being taken away. There should be 100 young people in this room right now, from the university, from the high schools. People think MLK Day, it's about the past. But when we're not vigilant, the past comes back to bite us again. We've got to go back to the streets. We're going to Raleigh, to the HKNJ on Saturday the 13th of February. We've got a bus, room for 55 people. We've got a lot of folks going, but we need some more folks. It's a sliding scale, $35 to $50 if you can afford it. We've got scholarships for students who can't. We need to fill that bus. It's an amazing experience. It was cold last year. We dressed for it. There were tens of thousands of people in Raleigh. It was amazing. It was a sea of humanity, of black and white, of brown and Asian, everybody. Gay, straight, everybody was there, united. White, working people, everybody was there saying, we need our government back. And it was amazing. And this is the 10th year anniversary of the HKNJ. This is the time. 2016 is the year. I could go on, but I think you probably want me to stop. But I would like you to please read, if you haven't got it yet, the program is good, but we've got the bulletin, the newsletter. We'll make sure that everybody gets a newsletter. And in there, our presidents wrote on the front some incredibly important things. And I, as the communications chair, I wrote somewhere on the inside, on the right-hand side. And I was going to read that to y'all, but I think I'll let you read it for yourselves. But it starts with, the only way to make a difference is through personal sacrifice. Because we know in generations past, the sacrifice was calculated in blood. Good people died, were brutalized, went to jail, not just for hours, but days, weeks, months, and sometimes years. We aren't expecting you to sacrifice your life or your health or your job or your home. We're asking you to step up and be counted. Good people need to be counted, and we need to rise up together. Good people who say no to injustice, no to hatred, no to those whose deeds hurt the vulnerable. So please, read the rest of this. Thank you for coming. And please, now, this is the year, 2016. If we don't turn this back now, it's going to be a whole lot harder. But I have one piece of good news. One piece of good news, I have to read this. We are witnessing the last desperate lunge of the old ways. This is their last stand against progress, against our rights, against justice, and against democracy. They know that if they don't win now, they never will. There are too many of us now. We know too much, and we share information too easily. So this is the crucial year to put an end to the insanity and the hatred and the societal suicide, which is where things are going right now. It's time to turn that bus around. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dan, for those inspiring words, a call to action, no doubt. Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., he was a man of God. He was a spiritual man. He was a religious man. He was a religious professional that embodied the best of the Christian prophetic tradition of calling out injustice and challenging tyranny. And this is something that I've heard people say about Shakespeare's words, but they certainly are very pertinent to the words of every speech, every sermon, every writing that Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. said. And that is that when you read his words, those words strike us because they are perfect statements of something that we already know. Right? That is the legacy of someone who is deep in their faith and speaking very strongly from their tradition. Here in Jackson County, as we started to come together as a branch of the NAACP, we are the furthest west of all the branches in the state. And we are very close to being the largest conference of the NAACP nationwide. I believe that New York State is the largest one, but that might change very soon. But we wouldn't be here today without leadership from the community. In particular, I want to acknowledge the leadership of Liberty Baptist just down the road from here. They have provided not just a place to gather, a place to store some of our material. They have also shared with us some of their leadership, some of their guidance, some of that very needed spiritual foundation to do the work of justice in our community. So with that, I would like to introduce the Liberty Baptist Choir, who are part of our musical group over here. And thank you so much for coming. You are great, and I always enjoy listening to you. So thank you so much. Please give them a hand.
It is our pleasure to be here and to be a part of this celebration. And we're singing old songs, and most people know them, so if you know them, you're welcome to help us. Swing low, sweet chariot, coming for to carry me home, swing low, sweet chariot, coming for to carry me home, swing low, sweet chariot, coming for to carry me home, swing low, sweet chariot, coming for to carry me home. If you get there before I do, coming for to carry me home, tell all my friends I'm coming too, coming for to carry me home, swing low, sweet chariot, coming for to carry me home, swing low, sweet chariot, coming for to carry me home. Sometimes I'm up, sometimes I'm down, coming for to carry me home. Sometimes I'm level to the ground, coming for to carry me home. Swing low, sweet chariot, coming for to carry me home. Swing low, sweet chariot, coming for to carry me home. Swing low, sweet chariot, coming for to carry me home. Swing low, sweet chariot, coming for to carry me home.
Thank you so much. Just tell you something about myself. I was born in Mexico City. English is not my first language, if you haven't gathered that already. Spanish is. But my mother was American. She was born in California. She moved to Mexico, and I grew up there until I was 12. But one of the things I do remember is that there was this tape and there was this songbook about American songs. And that was my first connection to American culture and to a lot of traditions and all of that. And I kind of learned to speak English first by learning some of these songs. I mean, something as basic as, Old MacDonald had a farm or something like that. But one of the things I do remember, and as you were singing, it sent chills down my spine, Swing Low, Sweet Chariot was one of those things, one of the first English songs that I could barely understand, but I knew that there was something very important there. So thank you so much for that selection. I'm actually very touched. It connected me with part of my childhood, if I would. Okay, at this point what I'd like to do is I want to invite Reverend Friedman. He's going to say more about our Time, Our Vote campaign. Thanks, Reverend.
Hello, everybody. Thank you for being here. The legacy of the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Is a very, very powerful one. It's a legacy that hasn't faded in the decades since he was taken from the world by an assassin's bullet. Some of us here today in the year 2016 remember when Dr. King walked the earth in the years prior to 1968. When he walked the earth, newspaper reporters and cameras often followed him, so the American public was fairly well informed about his activities. First, the civil rights movement brought him to prominence in the public eye. Then the anti-Vietnam War movement, then his work with labor unions and economic justice issues. Living in New York City, where I was born and raised, in those years I was fortunate to attend several events at which Dr. King spoke. I remember being among the hundreds of thousands who gathered in the streets of Manhattan for an anti-war demonstration, at which he was the keynote speaker, and another one in Washington, D.C. on the Mall, where he was also the keynote speaker, and I saw him at several civil rights demonstrations in New York City as well. He was more than a great leader for the myriad of progressive causes for which he stood. He was a leader, but he remained part of the masses at the same time. He never asked others to do what he would not do himself. His powerful voice of morality held such gravity that when he spoke, each important word ultimately moved the consciousness of the nation. His methods of creating societal changes were always nonviolent and based on the power of truth and dignity. I don't believe that it was ever Dr. King's intention for people to celebrate him. His goal was for people to understand and act upon the issues, principles, and values of justice. Justice on racial issues, on criminal justice issues, justice on economic issues, justice on the issues of war and peace. King was an activist for justice. I feel that the way we can most appropriately honor Dr. King's memory is by imitating his life and being activists for justice ourselves. Many, if not all, the people that are here today are activists for justice in some capacity. The sizable core of activists, this core of activists here in this room, is capable of expanding itself throughout our community and getting others involved. There's a powerful grassroots movement going on in North Carolina and throughout the nation right now. The Moral Monday movement continues to grow as the political and economic repression has grown. And there is an immensely important election going on this year, while we have hundreds of thousands of unregistered but eligible voters in our state. I truly believe that the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. would want us all to be involved. And so what we're asking you here today is to be involved. And on Friday, I went with several others to Western Carolina University. We registered 61 people in about 4 hours. And I have to tell you, I've done this before, and it was more difficult before than it is now, because there's an enthusiasm out there. People are excited about this election because they feel like there is really something that can be gained in their lives from this election. We need more people in this room. Not only, if you haven't registered to vote, please go over to that table and register to vote. But we want you to do much more than that. We want you to help us register other people to vote. There are many people in Jackson County who are not registered to vote, who should be registered to vote. And we need help to do that. And I ask everyone in this room to please come over and speak to me or one of the other executive committee members and see how you can get involved in that process. We'll be going out again on the 27th of January to Western Carolina University. We'd like to go into schools, we'd like to go into churches, and we'd like to put up tables in public places and register people to vote. Please help us do that, and really, really consider getting on the bus on February 13th to go to Raleigh. This is going to be a huge demonstration. It's not just a demonstration in North Carolina. There are people coming from all over the country because North Carolina has become the center of the voter suppression law. You know, what's going on with voter suppression laws in this country. We have the most suppressive voter suppression law there is, the voter ID law. And as a result, we're getting national attention. People will be coming there. We need to show them that people in North Carolina are concerned, we're involved, and we're not going to take it. And we need your body. We need you to come and be part of that. It involves getting up at 3 o'clock in the morning. It involves meeting us at the bus at 3 o'clock in the morning. So you're going to have to give up your body a little bit to come to this. But we need to fill up that 55-passenger school bus. And I think you'll find it inspirational if you do. You're going to find great camaraderie with all the people. And if you've never been to a large demonstration, it's very inspiring. I know I saw Joe Sam Queen there last year or the year before, and many others who are in this room. But this is real. This is the Freedom Bus, and we need to get on it. So thank you for listening to me, and get involved. Thank you.
Okay, everybody repeat after me. It's our time.
It's our time.
It's our vote.
It's our vote.
It's our time.
It's our time.
It's our vote.
It's our vote.
It's our time.
It's our time.
It's our vote.
It's our vote.
We need your commitment, not just to vote, but to register other two people to vote, to be out there in the street, to canvass, to call, to make sure that your friends are registered to vote, that people in your congregation are ready to vote, of whatever community organization you're part of. We want you guys to vote and help other people to vote. And we know that there's a lot of misinformation about where it's needed, in fact, to vote. We have checked in with our lawyers. We know there are a new set of laws out there that have been passed. We call those laws that have been passed by our General Assembly this past few years effectively voter suppression laws. This is a fact. After checking with our lawyers, you do not need an ID. You can vote in this primary. You can vote in the general election with or without ID. This is very important to know, right? This is something that you can, in fact, do, and we're encouraging you to go and take this, to educate the people around you, to know that it is possible, to, in fact, to do this. So with this, we want you to be part of this campaign. We want to be engaged. We actually have a GOTV, It's Our Time, It's Our Vote committee. You don't have to be a member of the NAACP to be a part of it, but we want you to be a part of it regardless or not. We want to encourage you to join the NAACP, but it's certainly something that we can do. So what we have is that we have this little cards right here that are going around the room. It's called It's Our Time, It's Our Vote. We want to encourage you to do the following pledge. I want you to pledge to register to vote and to register voters to vote. Register voters, to educate voters about the ID law, early voting, and other voting rules, and to call infrequent voters. If you are part of this, you will actually be connected to a very vast network of activists, NAACP, Democracy NC, any number of hundreds of organizations that are a part of this initiative. And there'll be resources available to you. You'll be given guidance as to how to be very effective in this particular campaign. Please join us. I am the contact person for this county. You can always get a hold of me. My information is in the newsletter that you can find over there. But if you could please fill this up. Take a moment to fill this out, right? And Dan, will you be collecting those?
Yes.
You know, as soon as you're done with that, do give them back to Dan so we have this basis by which we are organized and have a really active committee and really make a difference in 2016, right? So let's take a moment to actually do that.
We need some pens or clipboards. Yes. I pledge to vote and help others get others to vote in the November 2016 election. I will register voters within my church or faith center, campus, or community. Email or call me with details. Check if you're willing to pass out flyers to educate voters about the voter ID law, early voting, and other voting rules. Send me the flyers. You can check I will call in frequent voters from a list I am sent to encourage them to vote. Send me a short list. We can only follow up if you provide an email and phone number. We will also email you information about your polling place, early voting locations, and a sample ballot, so you know what to expect. This information will not be shared with any candidate or party. Democracy NC and the North Carolina NAACP are not affiliated with any party. If you're finished, I'll collect them.
No, when you tell when early voting is,
Mhm.
it's very important.
Early voting, okay, so let's see, do I have my information with me? The primary, in case you didn't know, it's earlier than it's ever been in the state, and that is going to be March 15th, okay? March 15th, so there's a lot of education that needs to happen. The deadline for registration for the March primary, I believe it's February 19th. Thank you, February 19th, right? So you have that. So we have a lot of work in the ground in terms of registering people to vote. Make sure they participate in that. And I guess that will be a good segue for the following. Marian, if you could hold on there for just a moment. At this point, I would like to invite Representative Joseph Queen to say a few words about what's at stake in the primary.
Thank you. Well, one of the things I want everyone to realize is this is an important primary. There's lots of fine candidates for you to choose from. Educate yourself and choose. Go vote. But one of the most important things that you will vote for in this primary is our North Carolina education bond. Our bond is the only really bipartisan thing we did in the legislature this year. They have not invested in education at all, but we were able, with Democrats and Republicans, to get a bond before the people, a $2 billion bond, to invest in our university systems, in our community colleges, in our water and sewer infrastructure needs, in our National Guard facilities across the state, in some key economic development projects across the state. It's a balanced project, and we have a major science building at Western Carolina. We have over $6 million invested in Southwestern Community College. We have the same at Haywood Community College, similar amounts at Tri-County, similar amounts at AB Tech. Important projects at UNCA, important projects at Western North Carolina is well represented in our state park infrastructure. That's the first time since the recession, since the first penny will be offered to any of these things I've said. So if the people want government of the people, by the people, and for the people, they will have to vote, because this governor and this legislature has done nothing on their own. So it is your turn to go on March 15th and vote for the bond. I think they call it Connect NC. It's a multifaceted thing. It's reasonably priced. It will not raise taxes. It is structured to add spending as spending is removed. So it's very well conceived for public investment in the needs, the authentic needs of this state. So I encourage you to do that. And again, I think they had 53 Republicans vote for it. It takes 61 to pass a bill in the North Carolina House, and 40 Democrats. So it is truly a bipartisan, thoughtful piece of legislation, but it needs the people's vote before it becomes law and becomes a reality. Thank you.
What is the amount again, Joe?
$2 billion over 3 years.
$2 billion.
$2 billion.
Joe Sam, is there anything there for elementary schools?
No, it doesn't. If you know, the North Carolina state taxpayers pay for all our university systems. Local government typically pays for community colleges, but this has $400 million for community college. Every community college in North Carolina has a significant project. So we're sharing to help local government there. It does have statewide water and sewer projects. Again, if you know, North Carolina led with the Clean Water Management Trust Fund. We were the only state in the nation that invested $100 million per year for clean water. We used to be the clean water state. Well, they cut that to just about a trickle. But this invests several hundred million in clean water, which is key to our long-term economic development. So it is a very balanced plan, but those are the primary things I've said. It does improve. We haven't spent one nickel in our National Guard facilities, which are state facilities. So we have a facility here in Jackson. We have one in Haywood. We have one in McDowell that I know of that's been in my district. So these have all need some renovations, everything from roofs to expansion. But it is a very thoughtful, smart bill. We couldn't get 53 Republicans on board if it wasn't conservative. I can tell you, it is fiscally conservative and it's progressive because it's for education and infrastructure.
Thank you so much. Josan, did you actually use the word bipartisan just a moment ago? I don't think I've heard that in a while. So some people in the audience may not actually know what that word actually means. Maybe you can educate us a little bit about what the meaning of that word actually is. Yeah, it's like support from both parties, I guess. That's what it's
both parties working together. It really was astounding. Matter of fact, we couldn't believe we got it through. We couldn't believe it. But Lord does provide. So. But it takes your vote, your affirmation to make it a reality.
Joe, the building before you get, I'm going to ask you a question I don't know a hell of a lot about. What is the building that before you get to Western Carolina, where the governor cuts the many funds, the teachers there being trained?
The
What is
NCAT.
Is that involved in
This, no, NCAT doesn't get a penny in this. NCAT has been great, I can't tell you, they eliminated, this legislature and this governor, our, teaching fellows, which is scholarships to become teachers. The highest quality, teachers in North Carolina were cut entirely. They had not one penny. NCAT has been cut. We fought, I fought. I got every colleague I could on both sides. We struggled. We got their budget saved at 50% of its previous level. So it's half what it was. But it's still alive. They didn't close it. The governor closed it, just but the Senate closed it in their budget. The House restored it to half. That's how far we got. So hopefully in better times we can do that. But our problem there is that it's another issue, but we definitely need to come around and start supporting quality teachers for every classroom.
What is the identifier of this bill?
This, the bond, it's
Yeah.
just on it's on the ballot as, I think it's NC Connect bond, or it might be called the education bond, I'm not sure, but it's 2/3 of it is for education. But it has other infrastructure, water, National Guard, it has a thing for the zoo, it has a big research, for plant pathology down in Raleigh, at our research institution, NC State. So it has some very good things.
Okay, thank you so much, Josam. And what I just add, I teach at Western Carolina University in the building, the natural science building, that will be replaced by this bond. And I cannot even begin how inadequate this building is. Suffice to say that I keep a bucket in my office to catch leaks whenever they actually happen. So yeah, it's a leaky roof. It's really inadequate, and it's a disservice for our students if we don't actually fund this. At this point, Dan, do you want to add any more to that? Has everybody had a chance to fill this? And again, if you volunteer to do this, I cannot begin to thank you for willingness to participate in this initiative. And I'm getting really excited about this. This is the most exciting initiative that I have ever been a part of in scope, in terms of how we're going to reach and how we're going to benefit for our community and our democracy as well. Let's see, Miriam, you'd like to say anything about our community table?
Yes, we are collecting food for the community table, and if anyone has anything to offer, my number is 586-9561, and my email address is whitemarion@frontier.com. If anyone has any food, I will do it, come and pick it up.
Okay.
We have some boxes over there. If anyone has food today, you put it over there, and we take it to the community table.
Okay, thank you so much. And thanks to everybody who has chosen to actually already make a donation for that community table. And again, this is an awardee organization for their work for the community, so thank you. At this point, what I'd like to do, let's see, do I have everybody here? I would like to invite again our choir, the Liberal Baptist Choir, to complete our program, and then we'll have our benediction. So yes, if you could please lead us again in song.
He has asked us to sing two, so they're not going to be very long, but the last one is a participating song. And so we asked that everybody participate in both of them, but the last one definitely, because it really envelops and engulfs what's going on here today. We shall overcome. We shall overcome. We shall overcome someday. Oh, deep in my heart, I do believe we shall overcome someday. It's self-explanatory. Reach out and touch somebody's hand. Make this world a better place if you can. Reach out and touch somebody's hand. Make this world a better place if you can. Reach out and touch somebody's hand. Make this world a better place if you can.
And at this point, I would like to call upon Deacon Thomas. If you would like to join us, lead us maybe in a benediction, so we can complete today. And you'll also be given the blessing for the food as well, blessing for the meal.
Let us pray. Our Father in heaven, we thank you once again for allowing us to be here one more time. Yeah. We thank you for your many, many blessings. Mm-hmm. And we thank you for this food right now which we're about to receive. Let it be for the strength and nourishing of our bodies. Mm-hmm. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, and thank you for all the speakers. Thank you so much.